From defeating the King of Clay in his own turf to winning a record-breaking 24 Grand Slam titles, Novak Djokovic has produced some of the most iconic moments in tennis history so far. But which of these moments stand out from the rest? Here is a rundown of our favorite picks of the top 10 most iconic moments in Djokovic's career. Number 10. Winning the Rogers Cup. Every hero's story has that shining moment. That moment where they defied all odds and convinced the entire world that they deserved to be among the very best. And for Djokovic, this was that moment. But what made this win very instrumental in Djokovic's career wasn't just because he'd just beaten the world's best tennis player, Roger Federer. The events that led up to that final at the 2007 Rogers Cup in Montreal were just as important. Djokovic defeated world number 3 Andy Roddick in the quarterfinals, defeated world number 2 Rafael Nadal in the semifinal before finally beating world number 1 Roger Federer in style to win the Rogers tournament in grand style. In doing so, Djokovic became the first player since Boris Becker in 1994 to defeat number 1, number 2, and number 3 in the same tournament. Number 9. Becoming one of the very best. If there's anything Djokovic enjoys more than going up against the government COVID rules and learning multiple languages, it's winning Grand Slams. Between 2008 to 2024, the mighty Serb has won an all-time record of 24 Grand Slams, which includes another record of 10 Australian Open titles. But back in 2008, Djokovic didn't even have one major title to his CV, and standing in his way was former tennis player Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. What's even more impressive about this victory is that Djokovic defeated Roger Federer in the previous round to book his final. And let's be honest, when you beat the best of the best in the semifinal, you'll fancy yourself to use that momentum to go all the way. And that's exactly what Novak did as he defeated Jo-Wilfried Tsonga in 4 sets to win his first Grand Slam. Number 8. The Chosen One. Everybody knows that tennis isn't much of an international team sport. But international team sport or not, you'll agree with us that nothing is as glorious and redeeming as winning something for your country. It's like flying with a superjet backpack. Serbia began contesting in the biggest international tournament in men's tennis in 2007, which, unsurprisingly, coincided with Djokovic's rise as a world beater. The reason for that is as clear as a clear blue sky. Djokovic was the special one who was going to lead Serbia, a small country with just a population of 6 million people, to glory. That faith would be rewarded just 3 years later, when Djokovic lit the fireworks on court to win the Davis Cup final in 2010. Number 7. The 2011 Australia Open Final. In 2011, Djokovic won his second Australian Open to win the second Grand Slam of his career. While it wasn't albeit a mind-blowing or memorable final, given how easy he cut through his opponent like a hot knife through butter, the win was nonetheless a vital one in Djokovic's career. You see, before that 2011 Australian Open final, Djokovic endured a terrible 3-year drought. During that period, the mighty Serb failed to win any of the 11 Grand Slams that were played between the end of 2008 up until 2010. All it took was a slight change of diet to make Djokovic unstoppable, as the Serb breezed through Federer, Andy Murray, and Tomasz Berdych in unstoppable fashion to win. Just look at that celebration at the end. That's the kind of satisfaction that comes with knowing you're back where you belong. Number 6. His 2011 Wimbledon win. Nothing screams GOAT more than kicking your biggest rival's ass and validating your position as the best player in the world right in front of the same player you took the number 1 spot from. That was the story of the 2011 Wimbledon final as Djokovic ran over Nadal to secure a 6-4, 6-1, 1-6, 6-3 victory. Not only did Djokovic dominate that final, but it was his 5th time beating Nadal in the span of 1 year, as well as his 50th win in 51 matches. In that kind of mood, it's no wonder Djokovic made Nadal look like an amateur playing a man's game during that match. Number 5. Novak wins his first French Open. Whenever you think back at Djokovic's greatness, the year 2016 has to come to mind. That year, Djokovic broke his own ATP ranking points record, won his 6th Australian Open title, a Miami Open title, and was the best player in the world by a large margin. Djokovic was so dominant that even if you combined the points of the world number 2 and number 3, who were Andy Murray and Roger Federer respectively, it still wouldn't be enough to surpass Djokovic in the rankings. However, none of these achievements would come close to what Djokovic would later go on to achieve in that same year. You see, before 2016, Djokovic had never won the French Open title. It was the only major title that had continued to slip through his grasp. So, when the Serb made it to the 2016 final, he knew this was his chance to finally set things right. The only problem was this guy, Andy Murray. Just like Djokovic, Andy Murray was in the form of his life. In fact, not only was the Brit playing the best clay court tennis of his life, it was also Murray's first French Open final and his best shot of finally winning the competition. So it was no surprise that Andy won the first set. But Djokovic eventually grew into the game, before eventually going on to win the title in dramatic fashion. Djokovic's French Open triumph meant Djokovic became only the 8th player in history to achieve a career Grand Slam, and the 3rd player in history to hold all 4 Grand Slam titles at the same time. It was the kind of win that cemented Djokovic as an all-time great, and why not? Number 4. The longest Grand Slam final. We know a good masterpiece when we see it, and the 2012 Australian Open is exactly everything you want from a great game of tennis. And if we're being honest, this was an all-timer that didn't disappoint in any way. There were fireworks, passion, and lots and loads of even more sweat, all of which were on display. That night, Nadal and Djokovic both gave stunning performances that might be considered amongst the best of their careers, and you only need to look at this 3, becoming the GOAT. Speaking of all-time matches, the game between Federer for the 2014 Wimbledon title is another classic that definitely fits the bill. As usual, the game had all the build-up and anticipation that you'd expect from a game of this magnitude. Federer, an ageless wonder, was looking to win his 8th Wimbledon title. Djokovic, on the other hand, was the fiery competitor in his prime, playing his 2nd Wimbledon final in a row, having lost the previous one to Murray. So this was a must-win match for Djokovic, who was coming up against a Federer that looked back to his very best. Federer started the game by winning the first set with a brilliant serve to seal the win. But Djokovic's strong mentality was on full display, with the Serb going on to win the 2nd and 3rd sets with stunning displays like this. There was very little to separate the two players, especially with both players' sharpness leading to some incredible rallies in the match like this one. In the end, Djokovic found a way, and although he started the game ranked number 2, his victory over Federer saw him replace Nadal as the world's best player. Number 2. Dethroning the King. In 2021, Novak Djokovic found himself in one of the toughest positions for any tennis player in the world, facing Rafael Nadal in the worst place imaginable: the clay. Playing at the French Open is like going to Nadal's home and fortress and expecting to win. And with 13 French Open titles, Nadal is undisputedly the king of clay. The only problem was, Djokovic was no slouch either. Not only was the Serb the best tennis player in the world at the time, but he had also just surpassed Federer's Open-era record of 310 weeks at world number 1. So Djokovic went into the match knowing he could win. The match, as it had often done on several occasions in the past, promised a lot of fireworks and entertainment, and it did not disappoint. The 3rd set alone delivered a masterclass in clay court tennis history. Both legends put on a show at Roland Garros, but it was Djokovic who eventually came out on top to secure a 3-6, 6-3, 7-6, 6-2 victory. Number 1. Long live the King. This might be the most recent entry on the list, but we know an iconic moment when we match, hoping to equal Margaret Court's record haul of 24 Grand Slams and cement his status as the greatest tennis player of all time, a second time. But Djokovic did not let lightning strike twice and outlasted Medvedev to win his 24th Grand Slam and level Margaret Court's 50-year record. Just which of these moments was your favorite? By the way, this video was made towards the end of 2023, so who knows what Djokovic still has in store for us. Besides, how many Grand Slams do you think he will win? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.